Good afternoon, the Smell Test Podcast here, back with you, and your guy Whiff here. Hope you're doing well. You had a good afternoon there, and you're on the way home, or you're just getting home and kicking off your shoes there, ready to enjoy the evening and finish up your manic Mondays, what have you there. So I wanted to wrap up today's talks with one about legal versus right. You know, there's this big thing going on right now about the Supreme Court there and what is legal versus what is right. And it comes down to, I think, something pretty simple, but let's just talk about a couple of things here. The big thing, obviously, like I said, there was the Supreme Court, and you got the president there saying that he wants to nominate someone to the Supreme Court, which he has, Amy Coney Barrett. The Coney is fascinating to me because I think Coney's like, I think of Coney Island and places like that there, and so that name is a little different. I know it's a maiden name, but it's still a little, it gives me a little chuckle because of the name there, but no offense intended there. And then he wants to fill this seat there on the Supreme Court so that they have 9 justices and they don't take a chance on having a tie if it comes down to it, when it comes down to the election there. So you got the president there thinking on that side, and then you got Joe Biden, the vice president, former vice president, running for president now, and he's going, no, you should let the next president decide who's going to fill that seat there. Now, that has 2 outcomes. Either Trump gets to decide it or Biden gets to decide it. But either way, the problem would be is that whoever gets to choose, it's going to choose someone who they think is going to fit better in the court and their ideological purposes there. And we're long past this time now where people are getting on the bench and they don't have leanings one direction or another. It's just a part of it. And then you got the Constitution, which should be what's guiding you, but that ain't the way it is anymore. You got either traditionalists or activists on the court there, and activists look for underlying, and traditionalists look for plain text written there. So that's the big thing there, but here's the thing, though. All right, you're going to have, if Joe Biden got the election there and he got to nominate the person to the seat there, you're going to have a situation where they're going to be like, okay, Mr. Biden here, he gave me this seat, so I want to consider him in a situation just the way a person who Trump appoints is going to have a traditional way of feeling that way. Although a lot of conservative judges, like the Gorsuch fella and the Kavanaugh figure there, they both have voted against traditional conservative things there that people have been surprised and disappointed about based on what I heard there. So either way, they're both going to have an impact. Most likely you're going to see more of a feeling of loyalty in some direction from the Democrat side than you will from the Republican side there. So if that's the case, then you're more likely to have it to where the person, if Trump appointed them, they could vote the other direction, versus if it's going to be the Biden fella and he gets to appoint somebody, then you know is most likely like 99.99999% there if they're going to vote in his way there. So if they end up not filling the seat, you got the chance for a tie there. And then what happens is it goes to the House of Representatives, and the Speaker of the House apparently can be chosen to be the president, which is not what the Speaker of the House was elected for there. So I definitely think they need to fill the seat, but here's this question of legal versus right. Well, here's the question. Do you not think the Constitution is right? This is my bottom line. Do you not think the Constitution is right? Because if you believe in the Constitution and you think that it's the right guy there, then it says the president should appoint someone to the Supreme Court. It's his responsibility to nominate someone, and it's the Senate's responsibility there to advise and consent as to who gets fitted into that seat there. We've already talked about how there was like 29 other instances here where Supreme Court seat was open and the president nominated someone, and 17 of the 29 times someone was confirmed, some of them faster than this process here would be for the Amy Coney Barrett person there. So it ain't like this is unusual. As a matter of fact, it's more usual than unusual. The biggest difference is that the person who is in the White House there, if they're different from the political party, the Senate there, then they don't like each other per se, if you want to put it that way. And so they don't vote to confirm their person there. So that's the reason that, Obama didn't get his person confirmed, but he still nominated him. And then the Democrat people there, they didn't like that, right? They didn't like it. They're like, you should have voted on our guy. Yeah, but it ain't the first time a political party that was separate from the president's party who was running the Senate. So in other words, the political party in the Senate is different from the president. It ain't the first time that that's happened, and that a Supreme Court nominee hadn't gotten voted on there, or got voted on and was declined to be seated there. So if you think the Constitution is right, which should be the whole reason you're in this country is because you believe in the Constitution of the United States, then legal and right are technically the same thing. I don't know why you don't think that ain't the same thing there. It just really sounds more like you want leverage there. So you're going, I want the leverage. I don't want you to have the leverage. I want to have the leverage. Well, the fact is, the Trump's got the leverage because he's the guy in office right now, and he's got it all the way through the 4 years. And I don't believe for 1 second there that if Joe Biden was the president and the Chuck Schumer guy here from New York, what a piece of work that fella is there. He reminds me of Mr. Magoo. I don't know if anybody else knows that or thinks that, but he reminds me of Mr. Magoo. I ain't never seen anybody like that fella. I don't understand why anybody votes for him, but that's got nothing to do with his political feelings there. It's just the way he acts is really odd. You'd have to see him to know what I'm talking about, but that fella's really peculiar. And speaking of Chuck Schumer, I want to point something out that I think is real interesting here. You got this whole thing where Schumer has come out and he said, if Judge Barrett gets the confirmation that she'll sit down there in the judge's spot in the Supreme Court, and when the ACA, the Obamacare thing, comes up on November 11th, which apparently it's coming up, then that she'll vote against it, and like 130 to 150 million people will lose their benefits. Well, first, they can't even make up their minds how many people are getting the Obamacare thing there. And number two, what makes you think she's going to vote against it? Are you saying because she's a conservative type person there that she's going to vote against it? Are you saying that she can't look at the Constitution and look at the ACA Act and see if it's coinciding there with what the Constitution says? Or are you saying that the ACA ain't constitutional, and as a result, it's going to be thrown out there? Because if that's the situation, then it probably shouldn't have been approved in the first place here by the Supreme Court. So here's the question. Are you saying the ACA is unconstitutional? And there's a reason she would vote against it there? Because that's the only reason I can imagine you thinking that if this woman gets seated, she'll vote against it. Anyway, if those two was in charge of the Senate and the White House, I guarantee you they would be voting for his nominee. This is just a matter of it's not fair because we're not in charge, and that's what I'm talking about. I was talking about earlier today. There's some real childish stuff happening with the Democrat people. I don't understand why you would act like a little kid and just go, okay, fine. But I know this depends upon the election there because they're trying to do so much of this stuff with the mail-in, and they know it's going to end up being like what happened back there in the early 2000s there with the Bush Jr. and the climate guy, what's his name? The Gore fella there. It's going to end up being like that, only it's probably going to be like on steroids here. So, bottom line is legal versus right. Technically, if you're going to the Constitution is what right. If you're trying to present your perspective on moral what's right, well, moral what's right is what the Constitution was based on there. And they ain't amended it to change it. So it's also supposed to be a societal moral guide. And that societal moral guide says if a Supreme Court seat is empty, it's the responsibility of the president to nominate someone, and the Senate, at whatever time it happens, their job to advise and consent. Now, it might be different if 2 days after the election was over and a new person and a new Congress was nominated. It might be different. They might go, we're going to wait it out and vote when, let the vote happen in the next term. Let the next president nominate the Supreme Court justice there. But it's before the election, and it should be the responsibility of the current president to do that process and the current Senate to participate there in the advise and consent there. Now, as far as if I think this is going to help the Republicans or the Democrats in the process of the election, it should do both. Because if you're going to have the Republicans voting on who gets to get into the Supreme Court there, then that can be a motivation for their voters to come out and continue to support them because they're following the agenda that they were voted in to complete. As far as the Democrats concerned there, they should be glad about it too, because if the Republicans there show their behavior and vote on this person and they don't like who they nominate and then seat in the Supreme Court, then it should motivate the Democrat voters to get out more so they can help get more Democrats in the seats there to control the Senate and the House and the presidency, and then they can have their control and do what they want to do. So I don't think there's any difference between legal and right. The Constitution is your societal morality guide there, and it's also the legal guide. And in this situation, the smell test says legal versus right is the same thing there. They smell the same in this situation. So we're going to go ahead and give a good sniff there to the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett and say we'll see how this turns out with the Senate. And if you don't like who he's nominated, the Trump guy there, then go out there and vote for the Democrats. And if you like what Trump is doing here, go out and vote for him. I'll tell you right now, whoever you vote for, you better make sure they're actually got your best interests at heart there, and they're not just thinking about what's good for them and their power, because their power is the problem with government, that there's too much power in these people's hands, and more of it needs to come back to the people. we'll talk about these tax policies and what have you tomorrow, but I just want to put that out there. In this case, legal versus right is pretty much the same thing because the Constitution is the guide there. So, hope this makes some sense to you, and if you got your own opinion on it and you want to share it, I say do it. Please do there. Put it down there in the show description comments section there, or you can call the hotline there at 505-585-0500. And I appreciate you listening very much. You have yourself a real good evening. And as always, to you and your family, God bless you.